Karen Friedman Agnifilo, you were the number 2 at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. You worked there for nearly 30 years, at times served as the acting Manhattan District Attorney. You've been able to provide us with some great insight about the way the cases work based on your real life perspective and what you dealt with at the office. And I would say thanks to you, in particular, our coverage of the Trump criminal trial has been the number 1 across all digital most watched. And it's been an honor to co-host that with you, Karen, but we heard a little bit from you before when the news was breaking, but I'd love your more full detailed analysis right now. Would love to hear your reaction as a little bit more of this news is now kind of settling in. Karen.
Yeah, I'm going to start with one quick war story. When I was a very young prosecutor in the early 90s, and I had my first trial, and it was a conviction. I remember coming back, and there was one person in particular who was saying, pop the champagne. This is great. Even likened a conviction to a sexual, something sexual, which I just remember thinking at the time, I had a pit in my stomach, and I thought, I don't think this job is for me because I don't feel happy at all. Am I absolutely, is it the right thing? And should there have been a conviction? Yes, but the gravity of a criminal conviction is absolutely one of the most intense, incredible feelings in not a celebratory way, but in a somber, it's almost how you would feel when something happens in the military or something happens. I can't describe it, but it's not celebratory. And I'm sure that the jurors here in this particular case felt that same weight of what they were asked to do. These were 12 average, regular people. By the way, they weren't people necessarily from Manhattan. They were currently residents of Manhattan, but they were people who come from all walks of life, different states, and even different countries. And I think that's important because, again, there are many narratives out there driven about how I can't get a fair trial in Manhattan. People in Manhattan are so biased. Well, this is such a cross-section of the United States of America, this particular jury. I thought was really interesting. And I am sure they felt the weight of what they were tasked to do, which has nothing to do with the fact that it's Donald Trump, but it's to sit in judgment of another human being and to render a verdict, because it has nothing to do with Alvin Bragg or Joe Biden or Judge Merchan, the people that Donald Trump had been railing about for so long. This has to do with those 12 men and women who heard the evidence. The witnesses came in, and there was nothing special about this trial. This is exactly the same as every criminal trial in the United States of America. You have to go in, you go to court, and you sit and you are judged by a jury of your peers who have to find beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the core of our system. And every single person who breaks the law has to face that same system. And so it's not about the DA, it's not about the judge, it's not about the prosecutor, it's about the jury. And the jury heard the witnesses. And there's no hearsay allowed, right? It's as witnesses have to come into court and swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. They have to say what happened, and the defense gets to cross-examine them and gets to ask whatever questions they want. So it's fully vetted, and the jury heard it, and they sat in judgment of another human being. And that is a very, very difficult task. And I just give them so much credit for what they did. And frankly, they absolutely recognize the gravity of the situation. I think just given how people described what they looked like in the courtroom. And they were also resolute. The jury was polled, meaning the foreperson is the one who reads the verdict, but then the judge asks, would the parties like the jurors polled, meaning individually asked, is that your verdict? And the judge asked, juror number 1, you just heard the You just heard or juror number 2, you just heard the 4-person read the unanimous, the guilty of all 34 charges. Is that your verdict? Yes. Juror number 2, is that your verdict? Yes. Juror number 3, is that your verdict? Yes. And so Donald Trump had to sit there and listen 12 times for each and every juror to be able to come out and emphatically say, that is my verdict. And the other thing I just want to say is, again, when you have Donald Trump saying, again, this is not legitimate, and everything is stacked against me, et cetera, and I can't get a fair trial. If that were the case, these jurors would have just had a 34 count conviction in an hour, right, when they got the case. But they were out 12 hours, and they were out overnight. They asked for readback. They wanted to hear the testimony and go back over the evidence. They even asked for readback on the law. And so they considered the evidence. They considered the facts. They applied the facts to the law. And when was the last time you were able to get 12 people to agree on anything, right? Imagine asking 12 people, where should we have dinner tonight? What movie should we see, right? The fact that these 12 people all agreed that unanimously that Donald Trump was guilty of 34 counts of falsification of business records is just astonishing, especially when you read the definition of reasonable doubt. As a prosecutor, every time a judge read that definition, I would have a pit in my stomach and think, how am I going to get a conviction? It's a really, really high burden. It's beyond any doubt with which you can affix a reason. That means these jurors had no doubt that they could affix a reason to. None. And that is absolutely a condemnation of Donald Trump and what he did in this case. This is not a hush money case. The theory of the prosecution's case, on no uncertain terms, this was election interference. In fact, the judge said, if you find that was not election interference, he's not guilty. This was about influencing the 2016 election. That was the theory. The prosecution had to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, and the jury found it. And so that is what he did. So for anyone to say this was not a serious case, this case should not have been brought, just think about it. In 2016, when nobody thought he was going to win, right? Nobody thought that back then. And what happened? He was able to hide information from the voters. He suppressed this information from the voters. And he won by 3 swing states and only by 80,000 votes. What if this made the deal? Or made it so that's why he won. Think about how history changed because he became the 45th president. So for anyone to say this is not an important case, this is not a significant case, just really doesn't realize what this is about. But the jury just absolutely validated what we've all been saying. And I want to give the 3 of you credit because frankly, yes, I was at the Manhattan DA's office for almost 30 years. I spent my whole life there. I spent my whole career there. But you're in a bubble. And when I came out of the Manhattan DA's office, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then I met you, Ben, in particular. And I learned about what you and your brothers were doing and Midas Touch and what you were creating. And that this was a movement that was like no other movement. And what you guys created here, you were the first people to really say, you know what, enough with what is going on in the media, enough with the fake information that's being put out there, enough with the both sidesism. And you created the Midas Touch Network. And I met you, Ben, and I met Michael Popak. And, you guys had just created Legal AF. I think we had we'd be excited if we had 1,000 views, on one of our episodes. And I was talking to Popak one day, and we were just talking about what you guys are doing and what you created. And I said, I would love to be on Legal AF and be a part of this movement with you all because it was so important and it was so unlike what anyone is doing. And I'm just so proud and honored to be a part of the Midas Touch Network. And I just really can't thank you all enough, because the fact that you're now like buddies, with Joe, the fact that not buddies with, but you can get an interview with Joe Biden. So to me, that's like the buddies with, that he'll speak to you guys. Look at where you are and what you've created. And so I just think the Midas Touch Network in general deserves, such a huge credit, frankly, for hopefully saving our democracy ultimately, but certainly getting us to where we are right now and really being the leaders in this area, truly the leaders. There is nobody else. And I just want to say one other thing. We've been doing Legal AF, for 3-4 years now, and you guys have been doing this pod for a long time. We've all been doing it. And for people who don't know, we all have other jobs, especially back then we did. And this is like, kind of something that we did, or we do sometimes, on the side, because we care about democracy, we care about this, whatever. And you put in a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. And sometimes it's not fun, and sometimes it's really hard. And, Ben did it in the middle of his wedding, and you do it all the time. And I just want to say, it's amazing to me to see how the rest of the world now is all doing the same thing, right? How many podcasts are there that do exactly what you've been doing and what we've been doing for 3 years now? How many, it's I think everyone, including the legacy media, is absolutely doing our model and is valuing authenticity over glossiness. And that's what I love about Midas so much, is it's all about authenticity. It's not about, sometimes we have like a dog barking in the background or so, no, but it's true. It's not, the old model is one that depends on, expensive sponsorships and
Right.
to keep it going, because it has to be perfect and glossy. And what I love about you guys and what we've created, and I don't want to say we, because it's you. This is all the three of you that you have created this, and I'm just following along and loving every second of it, and feel so lucky to be a part of it. But just how it's all authenticity, right? It's all just about the real, the fact that like I can do it from a train, or I could do it from a taxi cab. Whatever. And people are very gracious about it, because I think they know we're just trying to bring them the truth, and it's all about the truth. And what really what was really validating for me today is, number one, I'm just so proud of my old office. I can't even tell you how incredibly proud I am. It's just a little state prosecutor's office, and every once in a while, you have like the people who are former feds, they kind of look down on us, just cute little state prosecutor over there. And I am just so proud of our office, that my old office, not my office anymore, but my office of 30 years. I'm just so proud that they always have done the hard cases, the cases that are not political. It's all about the truth. And, frankly, the truth matters, and the truth means something in this country. And Donald Trump kind of gaslights the world by making it seem like the truth doesn't matter. He comes out and he says things that are just the polar opposite of what is the actual truth. And really what meant a lot today and this verdict was it really validated that the truth actually matters. And so anyway, I wanted to just, because a lot of people are congratulating a lot of, the prosecution and everybody else, but I wanted to just take a minute, and I appreciate you letting me do this, just to really acknowledge you guys for creating the Midas Touch Network and bringing together a community of almost 3 million people who you've really, I think, changed the world in a big way. So thank you all.
Well, that is high praise coming from you, Karen. And it is we. You are an essential part of this. And that's why we were so thrilled to launch the new show, Mistrial, with you and Danya Perry and Kathleen Rice. Make sure you subscribe to this on the audio podcast, folks. It's on Apple right now. It's on Spotify. It should be basically anywhere you find podcasts. It's MISSTRIAL, all one word, the newest addition to the Midas Touch Network. We had our premiere episode on YouTube last night, which is absolutely crushing it out of the gate. The reception has been incredibly positive out of the gate. Karen, while I have you and your expertise and your experience here, one of the things I found interesting during this trial was the constant reading of tea leaves by pundits and by people, online and whatnot. And one of the biggest kind of points of conversation in these past few days was the elusive jury notes. When the jury would ring and they say the jury has a note. And we would hear what these jury notes were. We heard that they wanted to learn more about the David Pecker testimony. They wanted to learn more about Michael Cohen's testimony in the Trump Tower meeting. At one point, they requested headphones so they could listen to something. And people were speculating about what a lot of these things meant at the time. Now, after the verdict, reflecting on these jury notes, what do you think was possibly going through the jury's mind when they were requesting those pieces of evidence?
I think that's a great question, and I've thought a lot about it. I think they were really, they took their job seriously, which is thinking that the prosecution has the burden and the only burden to, first of all, it's clear they absolutely rejected that ridiculous Bob Costello defense and the defense saying, you could have called Eric Trump, you could have called Don Jr. I'm sorry, those people would have testified for you, Mr. Todd Blanche, if they had something good to say. You don't think your client would have said, okay, sons, get up there and say something, or Alan Weisselberg or Keith Schiller? They chose to put on a defense, and they chose to, that's what they chose. They chose to put Bob Costello. That totally backfired and blew up in their face. And I think the defense here was really, and I hate to Monday morning quarterback this, but I really don't think I think there was a case here that the defense had a chance of winning, and they just totally did not try this case properly. Thankfully, because now he's convicted, and because there were weaknesses in the case, like there are any case, but they absolutely did not put on a good trial, in my opinion, if I were criticizing the defense. But what they did then was the jury, so they totally rejected the defense, what the defense said, and was like, okay, that makes no sense what they did. But I still, doesn't matter. I can reject the defense, but I still have to, the prosecution still has to meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, because they can reject the defense and then look at the prosecution's case and say, oh, but they still haven't proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and still have to vote not guilty. So I think that what they did was they looked at, they took what the prosecution's theory, Josh Steinglass's theory of the case, which was Michael Cohen is corroborated. He provided the roadmap, he provided context, he provided color, and we recognize that he in the past he had some credibility issues, and as a result of acknowledging that gave them a lot of credibility to the jury too. But said, look, everything he said is corroborated, and this is all the corroboration. For example, all the documents and that, all the phone records and all the text messages and all that, the way this was tried by Josh Steinglass and Susan Hoffinger and others in that office was just masterful, because they pre-corroborated Michael Cohen so that as he was testifying in a linear chronological way, they could just hand him the things that were already in evidence that corroborated every detail of what he was saying. So it was like words with proof, words with proof, words with proof. It wasn't like disjointed in any way. And that was just such a brilliant way to do it, because he was corroborated the whole way, but he was also corroborated by the words of David Pecker. And David Pecker was the first witness. It was like 5 weeks between when Pecker and Cohen testified. So I'm not surprised that they wanted Pecker's readback of where Pecker corroborated Michael Cohen. And what they wanted was the part of Pecker's testimony where Donald Trump essentially deputized Michael Cohen to be the guy to negotiate with. And that's what Pecker said. So that every time Michael Cohen dealt with David Pecker, and one of the questions was, Trump didn't know. Well, guess what? There's the testimony that says, talk to Michael. Michael is the one who's going to be doing this and arranging that. And I think that really, what they wanted to remember that and hear that, because there was so much time between that testimony and Michael Cohen. I'm not surprised they didn't ask to hear about Stormy Daniels, because it didn't matter, right? Stormy Daniels, whether or not they had sex was irrelevant, right? It was clear that they paid her off, and you can't deny that. And so why Todd Blanche spent any time saying that that didn't happen in summation? Waste of time. And also he lost all credibility there, because no one in the right mind would believe that Donald Trump is paying $130,000 times 3, because it's grossed up to $420,000. No one believes that he's going to pay that because she's standing next to him at a golf course in a picture. So he lost all credibility with everything he argued, everything he said, and they didn't bother with it in their jury notes, right? In their deliberations. All they needed to deal with was really that piece of it. Once they got it, they saw it, then they went through each and every count and they, with care, to make sure that burden of, the beyond a reasonable doubt was proven for each of them. And they found it was there for all 34. I mean, it's an absolute resounding affirmation and validation of the prosecution's theory that this was an election interference case, and it's really important. And it happened, and Trump is guilty.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.